Hello everyone and welcome to the show. It's always lovely to have you with us, and today I've got Jens Kreisel doing my best German pronunciation there. I've just learned that Kreisel means a spinning top in German, and that is linked to your physicist background. Jens is the rector of the University of Luxembourg, a physicist by training, but much more besides that as well. And so today we're going to delve into what a university means in today's AI age, how to have a lifelong education and what that means for the country of Luxembourg. So Jens, it's lovely to have you here in the studio.
Good morning, Lisa. Great to be here.
Good morning. So, well, the purpose of a university, that's no small question in today's age where things are changing so fast. We will go on to talk about AI, of course, and how that is affecting, well, everything, but obviously it's affecting education as well. So what is the purpose of a university?
Well, a university has a very important societal role and is very pleasant, in fact, being the rector of a university, because we have to teach and to educate the young generation who will drive our future, who will look into the climate, who will be our doctors, who will be the teachers. So that's one of the missions of the university, is educating the next generation. The second mission of a university is just as exciting. It is doing research and innovation. And that means being at the forefront of knowledge, is thinking 5 to 10 to 20 years ahead, really, of what is coming, understanding that, is working on the drugs of tomorrow, is working on the quantum computing of tomorrow, is reflecting on the society, is reflecting on democracy. And then we've got a third really important knowledge, which is translating our academic knowledge we have on all these different fields to society. And that's what a university really is. It's educating the next generation, is doing research and driving the innovation for a country and translating all this into the society in three great societal roles.
And I think there's a fourth pillar today as well, which is the lifelong education. And I know the University of Luxembourg takes that seriously too.
Yeah, you're so right. Traditionally, in fact, we've got these three missions, and I've got the saying that there will be in the future a fourth mission, and that's, as a matter of fact, is lifelong learning. And why do I not put this under education, so under the first mission? Because it's so different. We do lifelong learning with people who have already been studying or who have been on the job. So it's a quite different type of education, and it's a new role that any university has to onboard very seriously, and we do so. And we have very concretely, we have been now setting up a new center for doing that. We have just done this a year and a half ago, and it's a very pleasant thing, and it's a really very local and regional collaboration as well.
And I think another thing we need to point out to anybody who's listening to us outside of Luxembourg, we always welcome you, of course, and I know there's many of you. The Luxembourg University is quite young, relatively young. And so you're also still adapting to what you need to do and also building your foundation. And so how do you go about being rector of a relatively young university?
But to start with, it's a very pleasant thing. So I've been in many different universities in Germany, in Karlsruhe, in Grenoble, in France, in Oxford, in the UK, and very established. Great universities, great reputation, but perhaps the capacity of moving fast and changing things in a 1,000-year-old university is more limited. We have been created in 2003, so we are effectively a young university. It's fair to say so. We are still a compact university. My communication department always says, say compact and not small.
Words matter.
That's right. And what does that mean? Actually, we've got about 8,000 students, which is not small, but it's not one of the big universities. What means big today? A university like Vienna University or Bologna University is 100,000 students. We are 8,000, and this gives us opportunities of personalized teaching and being mobile. So I find it great. We've got a lot of freedom to change things, because we might do it also for the first time, and the others have it for 200 years. So we have done much, but we've got still much to do.
And 8,000 is a small number compared to Bologna, for example, but it's not a small number for Luxembourg. And of course, a university also changes the demographics of a city, and you're in the south of Luxembourg, but also it changes the demographics of a country, who comes to study at the University of Luxembourg and who stays, the percentage of graduates who stay.
Yeah, so that's very certainly one of the main distinguishing points of our university. It is certainly fair to say that we are the most international university in entire Europe. Even perhaps around the world, there are other universities like Hong Kong or Singapore or Dubai today, which are very international. But on the European scale, we are among the most international universities. What does that mean? There is a sheer number of nationalities. We've got about 130 nationalities at our university, so we are just like the country. We are international. Then it is the nationalities among our student body, of course, so that depends. When it comes to the bachelor, we've got about 60% who are Luxembourgers, but that means on the other end, 40% are foreigners. When we go to the master, then there are rather 60% foreigners. And when we go on to the PhD level, then 90% of the students coming to our university are non-Luxembourgers. So this gives us an outstanding international flavor. So when students come to our place, they're not only coming to Luxembourg, they're coming to the world, they're coming to Europe. And perhaps the second international point is not only students, also, of course, our professors are very international and coming from abroad and bringing all the different perspectives and what I've seen at different universities. So we are somehow a small melting pot of Europe and of the world.
And I guess, there was a question, obviously, for many decades, why does Luxembourg need a university? And it did not have one, like the University of Luxembourg, for so long. So why does Luxembourg need a university?
I think it's a very colorful picture. The first thing I would say, and it's perhaps among the most important one, is Luxembourg always needs today, and will need tomorrow talents from all over the world, the best people. So the first mission, very certainly also of the university, is beyond educating Luxembourgers, is attracting talent to Luxembourg who would have never come. So many of our PhD students or master students who come from India, from the US, from Canada, would have never come to Luxembourg without this. But that's just part of the game, because the second part, and perhaps the more important part, is, do they stay? And the answer is yes, they do stay. And it is impressive, in fact. 70% of them, of our graduates, do stay in Luxembourg. It's an outstanding number you would almost never have at any other place. And it is one of my favorite jokes, actually. I have the enormous pleasure of welcoming all the students every year or so. They stand in front of me, 1,000 new students, and I say basically three things to them. The first thing is, you might not yet know, you come from all over the world, but 70% of you will stay here.
I bet they find that quite shocking.
They look at you and they look at each other and say, he's kidding us. But I'm not kidding. The second thing I'm saying, there is an extraordinarily high likelihood that your partner in life is also in this room. It's just statistically, many of us have met our partner at the university. And the third one, I say, it might well be, if you stay in Luxembourg, that your future medic, the teacher of your kids, your future lawyer, is staying just next to you. And it makes them reflect, actually. And it's the truth. It's a very strong factor of retention. So attraction and retention of talent is very clearly one of the main missions of the university. The second is just as important, I would say. Today, international, smaller or bigger companies need innovation. Things are going tremendously fast. Times of AI, of course, we might speak about this later on. So we're here also to support companies not only with talents, but with our knowledge of research of what comes next, and also adding to the attractiveness of Luxembourg when it comes to attracting foreign companies. So one of the really good examples recently has been Google. Google has decided, thanks to a strong investment of the government, to come to Luxembourg. And one of the first things they do, they set up a center of excellence together with the university. And yesterday, Mistral AI has just been speaking at our partnership day, and they say what we are missing most are talents. So it is great to know that the university is here and can fuel our company with talent. And perhaps the last one is just also as important. You're a very energetic and very objective observer of how important the university is, of course. It's just public debates. At the moment, our big topic is bringing AI to the larger public with AI cafes, bringing the university and hot topics in seminars, which are called University, to the city, and discuss about important topics. How will health look like tomorrow? Will the quantum computer come? Is AI only a great technology hype, or is it also a threat to democracy? These debates have to be brought to the society, and that's what we do as well.
And you make the researchers very amenable to the local public as well. Well, you've said so many things there, but going back to what you said initially, with the retention, 70% of graduates staying from all over the world, the young university, 23 years old, is really changing the demographic of Luxembourg and also its economic future. And the second pillar that you mentioned right at the top was that you have to have long-term vision as a university, which is a little bit tricky sometimes when you have short-term political turnover cycles. So you have to maintain that long-term vision, and you also have to maintain that long-term vision and plan it when we have AI coming in, as you said. So let's shoot to AI then. It's certainly a hot topic. We could start anywhere, but I mean, I know you're a physicist, of course, and you said to me recently that the language of physics is, of course, maths. And then you gave me this very interesting thought that perhaps the language of biology, maybe chemistry, is AI, in the sense that it uses huge amounts of data and you can think differently when you're speaking that language of data.
Yeah, I think that's it's an absolutely fabulous point. Let me stay a second on this. And this has been brought up, this conjecture has been brought up by Demis Hassabis. Let's dive for a second to Demis Hassabis. Demis Hassabis is the Nobel Prize in Chemistry of the year 2024. And he got his Nobel Prize for predicting how proteins would fold. Something very fundamental in biochemistry, in biomedicine, and for medicine. And
very, very complex.
Very, very complex. Basically, he predicted how 2 million proteins would fold. And that reminds me, when I did my PhD 25 years ago, my friends who were working experimentally on protein folding, there would be doing 2 of them during their PhD. So he's calling that scientific discovery at a digital speed. So that's perhaps the first thing which is interesting to be seen. The second, before I dive into your real question, is to see how did he come up by doing that and to his Nobel Prize. And here it's interesting to see that he has been doing during his studies and PhD 2 interdisciplinary topics: computer science on the one hand, and on the other hand, neuroscience. So he has a very, very interdisciplinary profile. And that we see very often coming together with artificial intelligence, of translating things from calculating probabilities in the chess game and using the same algorithms later on to calculate proteins. Now, coming back to what you've said, which is really one of the most fascinating things I have heard over the last 2 years, I have to say. The story is indeed that physics is an old science, but it was an observing science. And you would see you have a ball and it falls down, but he could not describe it. And at some point, we could describe this by a language, which is called, as a matter of fact, as you said, mathematics. What is the enormous power of that? The enormous power is that you can predict things suddenly and you can test things. So the groundbreaking advance in physics comes out of this. So there's been a century of physics. It's over now. It hurts me as a physicist. Now biology. Biology and chemistry is different because it has a strong inbound of probability. That means how would one protein fold? Would you develop cancer? Many ways of which are more probabilistic and are not just described by an equation. And he came up with this conjecture and said, perhaps artificial intelligence is the describing language of biology. I think there is some chance that that's true. But if that is really true, then we will have a revolution in biology, biomedicine and health. And by all technology applications, I believe the best for the society will come from AI to what it brings to the health of the people.
And so just sticking with this really potentially tremendous game changer in health, it does also require us to have very good data as the input. And that's not quite there yet. The data is dirty.
Yeah, data it's one of the big topics. There is on the one side, the data is the new oil. And
oil needs to be... Yeah.
Well, the second one is rubbish in, rubbish out.
Yeah.
Okay, so data is the new oil, but the second part of the sentence should be if the data is good. So cleaning data has been for the past years and making it good data a tremendous effort. Now many people say, let us just do the cleaning by AI. It will be so much quicker, and that's likely true. So there are fields where the data is there and allows advancing. And this protein folding is an example. Demis Hassabis, he didn't wake up in the morning and said, I will calculate how proteins fold. But he went into databases where there have been thousands of proteins where we knew how it were, and he trained his AI model with these known structures. So clean, very excellent data. And with that, he could do the prediction of 2 million others. And today, we're limited by two things when it comes to biology. One is, as a matter of fact, as you say, the quality of the data. That's entirely true. But the second is that even just a cell of a human is so complex and requires such an enormous calculation power to do so that we have to see how we address this. And he basically said that the dream of my life is that we are able to simulate a cell. Not speaking about the body, obviously, of a cell. But if we could do that, the impact on health, on our health and the health of our kids will be tremendous.
Well, you used a very interesting verb there, how to see a cell. I mean, just seeing things at all on that deeply microscopic level, atomic level sometimes, is another huge problem for science. But probability gives us a way of seeing things. Maths gives us a way of seeing things, of predicting things. So that's, as you say, another language. But you've also mentioned Nobel Prizes. I mean, prizes are a completely separate conversation. However, what we also have seen, and this is the link to industry and Google, some of the Nobel Prizes are not won by university researchers anymore.
Yeah, that's perhaps one of the most interesting points at the moment, and I think many people do not realize this entirely. And I would say two things to describe the situation first. When Demis Hassabis got his Nobel Prize, he has been working full-time for Google. In the same year, the Physics Nobel Prize went to the godfather of AI, whose name is Geoffrey Hinton. He has spent his time between the University of Toronto and Google. So within the same year, 2 Nobel Prizes to AI, and both strongly linked to a company. It's quite rare. The second point is, in the end of last year, or the middle of last year, there was an article in Time magazine. They came up on the front page, said, the 100 most important people in AI. If you would have looked into that list 20 years ago, out of these 100, at least 90 would have been university professors, because it was an academic topic. On that very list, there were 2 people working in the university. So it is true that much of the knowledge today is within the companies. And the calculation power is within the companies. The data is within the companies. Some of the best heads are within the companies. So comes up the question...
Or the money is in the companies.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's entirely true. The money is in the companies. But if you go along the European way and you say, I would like to have trust in the system. I want to have a trustable AI. I still would like to control something. We must make sure that the public hand has enough knowledge to do so. And the only ones who can guarantee this are universities.
Oh, gosh, this is getting a little bit... Or law, good laws as well, but then...
Good laws as well. but you need to understand the technology, right? That's entirely right. You need laws framing that, but you need to have a knowledge of technology to control it. And it's interesting to see these two Nobel Prizes, Hinton and Hasabi. Within the first week when they got the Nobel Prize, they said, great opportunities. We're living in a great time of excitement. It is a really exciting time. But both of them have immediately warned, we need to keep a hand on AI, and we need to see also a couple of societal difficulties on which we can speak as well.
Yes, and it also gives a lot of people the feeling who are not in that top 100 list, or who are not computer scientists or just working whatever a normal job is anymore. They're scared. They're worried about their own professions. Younger people might be worried about, what should I study? What's the point in studying anything when AI will take over all the junior positions on XYZ jobs? So there's also a deep void, a chasm there of the unknown. So how do you then begin to figure out how to educate young people and what the future careers look like when you also have to do the education and the long-term vision planning?
It is perhaps one of the most important and most discussed discussions inside universities today. Because we're very often confronted with the question, if I rephrase it, is, but how can you educate the younger people without knowing what their job will be?
That's always been the case, but it's just accelerated.
It's just very quick. It's just very quick. You're entirely right. It has always been like this. I remember my mum stepped out of her job at the time, and she said to me, Jens, I'm stepping out because they want to force me to use a computer. Right? So it has always existed, but for her it took her lifetime.
Yeah.
And now it is within years. That's right. And things are moving very fast, and but still not all the jobs are being transferred, right? There will be very clearly jobs which will no more exist in 10 years, and even in a couple of years. What I very often say, that's just one side of the medal. What is much more interesting is how many jobs will be created. And it's a balance in between those two. If you just create as many jobs as disappear, there is an offer for society, and people need to perhaps to re-educate, to rearrange. But coming back to your question on how do we deal with this at the university, it is important to understand what a university is. La raison d'être, the real heart of a university, is not only learning sociology or physics or computer science, but it's something much more. It is what I often call the hidden curriculum. It's not a nice term because it sounds like something secret, but it is in fact what a university is. And a university, whatever you study, is learning critical thinking, having the ability to contextualize things technologically, politically, societally, ethically, and being able to analyze things, and basically intellectual capacity. This is something what a hidden curriculum at a university is in whatever topic. And that will stay to everyone. And that will be so important in the future. And hence, if you study physics and tomorrow it's a little more something else, they will deal with this because they are the digital natives. Don't forget, they have been grown up by this. It's not us we speak about. We speak about the youngsters. They address this differently to us.
My physics teacher, God bless him, wonderful man, Simon Walnut, he told me the point of university was you learn how to learn, which is, I think, what you've just said.
Full stop.
Yeah, exactly. So learning how to learn. And you did mention, of course, critical thinking, and you also care deeply. The University of Luxembourg is known for the interdisciplinary nature of subjects. And half the university are humanities. We've also seen in the AI conversation, and it does pop up quite a lot. Of course, AI is built by physicists, mathematicians, computer scientists. But the humanities play a part too.
Yeah, I have to say one of my biggest happinesses is that I'm not the rector of a technical university, but of a university. The University of Luxembourg, we've got half of our people and half of our studies in fields which are called SSH, Social Science and Humanities, on one side. And on the other hand, the so-called STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, medicine, and mathematics. And this offers so much potential. And it is true that much of the discussion today is about technological opportunities, feasibility, what will be the next kid on the block on a technology side. And that often is discussed with a lot of precision. On the other hand, there is, of course, a fear of what AI will do to democracy, to society. I will give you just two views on this, which I think are important. The first one is, of course, fake news. The speed at which fake news are created and are spread are something very difficult. You can almost no more check them in real time. And people look at them and they need to be educated to challenge them. Give you one example. Yesterday, on one social media I've been looking at, it was said that Emmanuel Macron is divorcing from his wife. I really didn't believe in that, but I have to say that the way it was done, it was absolutely believable. So, the first thing I did was going on lemonde.fr and checked it. Now, obviously, they are not divorcing. But, if you don't check it, you don't know. So fake news is a big thing.
But you've pointed to something else there, which is that Le Monde is a trusted source. And so it then also puts an even heavier weight on all of these behemoths of news to absolutely check their sources.
That is a very good observation. And it brings also a university back into the game. A university is a trusted source when it comes to research. But let me come to a second just point about AI. Something many people don't know is what is the biggest use of AI today in terms of, let's say, ChatGPT? What do the young people do? They ask the AI for advice on their life. Right? My girlfriend just quit. What should I do? I've got problems with my parents. I don't feel well. If you look into the statistics of ChatGPT, Mistral AI and friends, and you look what is the biggest usage, that's the biggest usage. Now, people speak to AI as if it was a person, right? And this opens something up, which is the risk of being manipulated. And we're not used to this. You see, Lisa, when we speak, there is something which would characterize what we're doing at the moment and has what has a technical term that is human agency. So we've got a contact, I look at you, I trust you, I can see if you lie, I can think that we have on some topics we've got the same knowledge, I know on other topics you've got more knowledge, wow. I've got my own topics, right?
You know a lot.
But that's human agency. You do a bonding, truth or not.
Yeah.
Now with a machine, the machine knows everything about you, knows everything about the world, and has everything to manipulate you. So we are in a machine in a situation of extreme asymmetry. So we will be much more manipulated by this. And hence, we need...
let's just pause there for a minute. The questions you've asked, which are human, very human questions, like you'd ask a best friend or you'd ask definitely somebody you trust. What should I do? He's just left me, or, I'm not getting on with my parents. Oh, it's awful at home. But then the answer is coming back from an enormous body of knowledge, like averaged probabilistically over millions of inputs. So is it not then giving you the best answer?
I don't think so. It gives an answer, and I'm not saying that it cannot be helpful. It can in particular be helpful in making you reflect, right? If you just do something else and you want to have a strategic decision or discussion on a topic, you go to ChatGPT, you get input, right? But especially when it comes to personal situations, I think the solution is not the average. The solution is the individual case, the individual feeling, the person you are. So I'm not saying that there is not something positive, but if there is an AI in the back which has a different kind of objective, for instance, for selling you drugs, let's say, just take an example, it will trick you into taking drugs. I'm not speaking about illegal drugs. I'm speaking about drugs from in a good sense, and it might talk you into this. And so it's a complex topic, and the main part really is being able to question that. I think taking the advice is not bad, actually, but it's questioning that. And who knows how to question things and to contextualize best is people in humanities, is social scientists and people in humanities. And I often tell a story, which I will tell perhaps here as well, is when ChatGPT came up, and we've been sitting in the management team of the university, we were thinking, wow, how will that change the university, and can we trust it, etc. The only person in the room who stayed absolutely quiet was Andreas Fickers, a historian at our university.
A contemporary historian.
Yeah, and he just said, welcome in the club. We are doing this for 400 years, questioning sources. When we read something from 400 years ago, we think, is that true? Was there someone standing in the back when he was writing it? What was the political situation? Is there a religious background? Is he coming out of an illness? He said, welcome in the club. And by the way, the technical term for criticizing something is hermeneutics. I don't know if you listen here, you might want to look it up, the term hermeneutics, which basically is just what it is being able to have a look into this. And people from humanities, they've got the cultural instruments, reading, reflecting, criticizing, to do exactly what we need. Social scientists, political scientists, historians, they've got the tools for contextualizing things. This is what they do all day. When they hear something about politics, geopolitics, they contextualize it in a power way, in a social way, in a political sense, in a geopolitical sense, in a technological sense. And these are skills which are extraordinarily important, I think, in the time we live. So we need people from social science and humanities.
Well then, given one of your great favourite topics is interdisciplinary subjects, and I know your two daughters are studying, to your wonderful joy, biophysics and biochemistry. So mixing the sciences there all together, which is fabulous. You've got all of the sciences in your family and economics with your son. Then where does the training of a great mind fit in? So how would you blend all of these humanities and sciences to make the very, very best university education?
That's a fantastic question, actually. To start, perhaps it's interesting to say that the most interesting interdisciplinarity is perhaps the very strong interdisciplinarity. That means not a physicist who speaks to a biologist, but a physicist who speaks to an economist. That's and it's not immediate, right? How you have that dialogue. So,
no, I mean, it sounds very simple that we might speak even just the same language, but the words and the understanding is not the same.
That's absolutely right. And it's really difficult, in fact, and for good reasons. And it's good that people have their special knowledge, and it's difficult for me as a physicist to speak content-wise with a sociologist. But what I need is to be open. So it's this openness and this readiness to learn and to say, it just gets more exciting when I speak to them. When I speak to a physicist, okay, I can speak to myself, but speaking to a social scientist or some from philosophy is just so exciting. So the interesting question comes up is, when should we bring people into interdisciplinarity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at what stage? Because you still need the deep knowledge of a subject.
Absolutely. So, and that's a big topic also among our professors, because let me dive a little bit into history, because it's important to understand that there has been a time where scientists, I take scientists as an example, let's say Galileo Galilei, they were experts or they were knowledgeable in many different fields, including art, philosophy, physics, etc. So they were generalists.
Well, natural sciences was first called natural philosophy.
That's right, absolutely. But then came a different time when people, what is often used is a description by T-shape. And the upper part of the T is the horizontal understanding. But then came a time where it's the vertical part of the T, where people have been diving into very precise things. When you do the theory of relativity, like Einstein, you better know what you talk about. When you develop like Schrödinger quantum mechanics, you better know what you talk about. When you develop new vapor machines in engineering, you better know what you talk about. So there has been basically 100 years of deep knowledge and not so much transversal. And now what we see, that it comes back. And it is fair to say that the Anglo-Saxon universities are better prepared for that than European universities. European universities have often been more disciplinary oriented, while in American and also British university, you had much more something called majors and minors. So you could have a major where you do your diving into something in a real knowledge, but the minor could open you up. You could go into, as a physicist, into a lecture of philosophy, and it would be recognized in your studies. When I have been studying physics in Karlsruhe, my university would never have recognized that I did a lecture in philosophy. So with this, I think we've got part of the answer. Is this major-minor approach, I believe, is something important. And then comes the question, but when should we start this? At bachelor level? At master level? At PhD level? If I start at the PhD level, there are many people say, if you want to do good stuff, you have to study physics and not doing a PhD in physics and biology. And you might not find a job if you're too interdisciplinary, so there is risk. My opinion is we should start early in bringing people into contact. We should have even an obligation to our students to do so. And then some students might pick up on the topic of, in addition to physics, biology, because they're not open to sociology. But some might pick up sociology and then build it up. But how we will exactly do that, combining this openness together with deep scientific knowledge, we really have to discover that as well.
Well, also people are being asked to choose very early on in their lives. I mean, as a teenager, what do you want to study? And, well, in my case, you don't know what you love until you try it sometimes. And so having an open course, and then some people do know, but having an open course and then diving in. So I would be more the lateral with a deep dive here and there. I'm lateral but let's talk about, I know you've got some very good statistics about, there's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about slow science.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's pause on slow science and then we'll go to statistics. Slow science, in this very, very fast world, but real deep thinking requires turning off all of this stuff in front of me, or don't turn us off just yet if you're listening, but having that quiet space of mind, taking yourself into a forest, going for that long walk, rather than the fast and transactional, daily, we've got input all the time, but to take away and think and do that reflective depth of study.
Yeah, I think it's really the two extremes, and in a cliche, it's not entirely true, but in the cliche is really, when you speak about more natural sciences and technology, there is this thing as, like I said, digital speed. That's how Hasabi is calling it. So everything's getting quicker, and you almost don't know how you can catch up all the time, even for people like me who are really the day-to-day basis in contact with this. And then there is indeed this counter movement. And it's in fact not a counter movement, but it's interesting to see, and it's so important, having the other side is this idea of, which comes from the people in social science and humanities, in, hey, let's sit down, let's put off perhaps the social media, etc., and emailing and so on. Let's read something, let's reflect on this. And this is very much coming from the social science and humanities sides. And I think we need to combine those. So combining slow science and science at digital speed is basically interdisciplinarity. Mm-hmm. And I really think we need to do both. And from that perspective, I think that Europe is doing a good choice because these regulations, I wouldn't call it a slow science. And there are all the drawbacks, but it is give us the time to reflect it. And also protect it a little bit, something which is very much criticized, but it comes at least out of good purpose. If it is implemented in the best way, I think that's an open discussion. But let us just agree that Europe does this out of a good purpose for the society. And it is slowing down things, reflecting things, and framing things.
You mean the formation of laws?
Formation of law, regulations, the AI Act, all the kind of stuff that people don't like. GDPR, take GDPR. GDPR, it can be here and there a hassle. That's true. That's true. And then I here and there think, oh, wow. But it starts out of something of a deep conviction and a vision and a strong ethical value. And let's not forget this. The regulations might be here and there over the top, but let's think also about that the value in the back is really important to Europe.
That we should own our own data.
Yes, absolutely.
And the other thing I want, just going back to statistics, some very strong statistics, again, coming out of Germany that you have, because there's a few things here. The decline in humanities and engineering for Germany.
Yeah, that's if I take a step back and we speak about talents, and we need to see that in a very important number of universities all over in Europe, the number of students is declining.
And when we say talents, I mean, really the flip side of that is building the economy.
Right, that's right. So we need people.
Yeah.
We speak about how many IT specialists we need or whatever we need in Europe.
And we need people, sorry to interrupt you, but we need people at a time when Europe is aging and the demographic of younger people. So we need talent for the economy. The economy is changing and there are fewer younger people to feed the pensions of the older people.
All correct. And so part of the game is demography. It's simply demography, and it's different in different types of countries. And perhaps let me speak a little bit for a second about Germany. Not because I'm German.
The statistics are very good.
but the statistics of Germany are really, really good. And they show a number of things. They show that the student numbers are no more growing, they are stable. But in fact, they're only stable because of migration and immigration and because of international students coming in, which is not the same thing. If you were just to look into German and European students, there would be a massive decline. And in fact, you have a massive decline in different universities, many universities in fact. But there are two open questions. It's saying, are there universities who are not declining? First question. And the second question is, are all subjects declining? The answer to the first question is, not all universities are declining, especially universities of metropoles, Munich, Berlin, Cologne, Hamburg, they are still increasing quite a bit.
And why is that?
Yeah, it's a very colorful picture. One is because of attractivity of the big universities, the attractivity to younger people to go into vibrant international environment. The second is certainly also that these universities have been very well supported, and they're among the excellence universities in Germany. One of the best examples is certainly Munich or the universities of Munich, which are fantastically supported by the Bavarian state. I have to say, fantastic teaching infrastructures, research infrastructures, and by this have a high attractiveness.
And perhaps strong links to industry?
Perhaps as well. While I would, the Technical University of Munich clearly has this, but I believe it's less relevant for. It's good for the university, but it's less relevant for younger students. I don't think that they already look into this. But let's say metropoles attract. Mm-hmm. So it brings us to an interesting question: is Luxembourg a metropole? Obviously not in terms of size, but in terms of attractiveness, in terms of being international, in terms of being vibrant, in terms of being dynamic. Perhaps yes. If that is true, that would be good news. Obviously, I will not claim that Luxembourg is necessarily a metropole, but what I can tell you is that the student numbers of our university are increasing. We have a very solid attractiveness, and year by year by year, our student numbers are increasing. The second point I said is, now, what do students do? That's also an interesting thing. Politics and industry will tell us we need the young generation and talents in that field. But it's not because of that, because we need teachers, but the youngest are studying education. They've got their own opinions, as we have had, Lisa, right? Did we do what our parents told us? I'm not so pretty sure, right? They've got their own opinions. So what are the big tendencies? Not on the individual side, the big trends, very well documented for Germany, but likely true in many other places, is the taste for humanities goes dramatically down.
And why is that?
It's very difficult to say. I think also people speak less about this. Look into a journal. They would much more speak about Google than about a museum or about humanities, about culture, etc.
Don't you think it's because people are scared about jobs and they feel if they have a STEM subject, the statistics show they are more likely to get a job?
It is also absolutely true. That's very often I see when I speak with students. It is a little bit their own thinking, but it's of course the thinking of the parents. But the parents should know better, in fact. But this is true. There are less jobs in history than in AI. That's a simple fact. So that goes down. Right, so there are students which can suffer quite a bit, and one unfortunate example is the University of Trier nearby. Have great strength in humanities, and they had a loss of 10 to 20% of students. The other field is a little bit more surprising, and it goes against what you've said. It's engineering.
Yeah, that's a surprise.
Mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. The youngsters don't fancy that. They think it's boring, it's old. My father is a mechanical engineer, is that exciting? Likely not. The jobs are there. Yeah. The jobs are there, but they just decide to go to something else. So what do they do? Again, in average, those topics which are picking up quite strongly, and some are constant, physics, chemistry are quite constant, but what picks up is computer science. Is AI, very often in a specific way, like data science, and everything related to health. A massive interest by the young generation into health-related topics. And it is not just medicine. It is massively psychology. I don't know if you, when you listen to me and you've got kids and you know what your kids want to do or the friends of your kids, there will be many who would love to do psychology. It's a topic of today. Many love to do this.
It's also being pushed by the AI conversation, though, because you often have it. You see all the advertisements coming up as well. We need the psychologist to tell us how to talk for all of the reasons you said previously.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Psychology or cognitive science will be the science of tomorrow. But there is also an interest going into other health-related topics, digital health. Then.
AI they are neural networks, as they are called.
That's right. They are inspired from our brains, yet they're very far from working like our brains, unfortunately. If not, they would not have a high energy consumption.
Yes, it's a different problem.
Yeah. But so there are overall tendencies. But if I bring it back to our university, our student numbers go up. We are fully on the train of health. It's one of our major ambitions of the university is helping the country in attracting talent in health.
And helping the country full stop, because we currently don't have enough health professionals trained in the country. We don't.
That's right. But many things like, one of the ambitions of the university is to reflect on the master in medicine. We just need to decide it formally, but the discussions are very much advanced, going further to a faculty of health, no more a faculty of medicine, a faculty of health at some point. And by this making this country also more attractive. Let me be precise on that. We have very few places in medicine at the University of Luxembourg for the moment. You can only do a bachelor. So all young Luxembourgers who want to study medicine have to go abroad in the long run. Then they enter up in being in Heidelberg, in Strasbourg, in Paris. They're educated in a university hospital in a very academic environment and learn this as their professional environment. And that's what they want to have in their, some of them at least, also for their, if they don't become a private medic, in their professional environment. And I hear very often say, well, look, someone the other day said to me that, look at my hospital in Heidelberg. I'm not sure I will find this back in Luxembourg. So it's about attractiveness. And let's not forget that health and medicine is an economical factor. When you look into German towns like Heidelberg or Tübingen, you can very easily make that demonstration. And we know, simply speaking, the people who are studying at a place, especially at ours, they stay. So the more people we have been studying medicine and nursing and digital health here, the higher the probability that they stay.
Well, there's a stickiness factor.
There is a stickiness factor, absolutely, yeah.
And for all the reasons you said, they might meet their partner, they might meet their future doctor and lawyer right around them.
Absolutely. Only good reasons.
All good reasons.
And they, and something which is often underestimated is this fantastic attractiveness of Luxembourg, right? People often say, but Jens, how the hell do you do that 70% of your students stay? And I say, to be frank, not much. What we do is we bring them in and Luxembourg makes them stay.
Do we know how long they stay for?
Well, the 70%, 60 to 70% is for the first and the second job. That's what they know. Since we exist only for 23 years, we don't have statistics over such a long time frame. Our statistics is very much along 5 years. But we know, because of life, when you've got kids, you don't move so fast. And within 5 years, all good chances of having a family.
Now, I wanted to bring up a different topic of conversation, which is that of public versus private universities. Because again, just thinking about education and the flipping of subjects and the rate of change, private universities have different stakeholders. They can make decisions on different timescales for different reasons. So what is your thoughts here?
I think simply there are different types of university, public and private universities. You would have in some countries more private universities, like in America, for instance, and you would have in some countries, especially on the European continent, more public universities. Private universities, in let's say in opposition to a public university like the University of Luxembourg, can have more difficulties or more freedom. The difficulties is that they really depend on the economy. So when you look into the universities, for instance, in UK, which are not necessarily private, but they have the same mechanism in the sense that they depend on students, you can see that UK and American universities are extraordinarily fragile when it comes to geopolitical tensions. Very concretely, UK universities at some time, a lot of Chinese students came, and there are no more coming. UK had Brexit. Less people from the continent are coming. Geopolitical context, I'm not sure there are many Russian students there. So they economically depend on this, and this is very fragile. So they have to close down entire departments. They have to release professors. And it might well be that 3 years later on, they have to build up again the labs. So that's something. So this economic model of private universities or universities depending very much on that comes with a lot of fragility. Now, it is fair to say also that some smaller private universities, they are perhaps a little bit more mobile when it comes to creating study programs. Let's say they would not do computer science and medicine, but they would immediately have a master in, let's say, digital health, for instance. And they would run these programs very much with professionals. So I would claim that here and there the academic value is not the same because simply the teaching people are less into research, which in AI is catastrophic if you don't know the research. You teach out of a textbook. But let's say that they are quite dynamic and that's positive, and they have no difficulty in saying in 5 years' time there are no more students in that. Economically, it's no more viable. I close it down. Traditionally, in a public university, because you've been hiring the professors and you have them, it's a bit more difficult to close down things. What we do at our university is to find a way in between. So we've got traditional masters in physics and sociology and political science, which are there, where they are very disciplinary, etc., and there are the basis of a university foundation. But at the same time, we have been developing specialized masters on the top. For instance, in digital history. For instance, in investment law. It's effectively the only master in Europe where you can have a master in investment law.
Which fits Luxembourg's economy very well.
There's no surprise. We have done this for Luxembourg. We've got, for instance, on the top of having a master in computer science, we've got one in data science, we've got one in cybersecurity, we've got one in high-performance computing. And you see again the alignment to Luxembourg. So what we try to do is that we are mobile and quick on topics of relevance for Luxembourg, where we know also our students will find a job and they will come because of that as well. But at the same time, we offer the rock solid university education. So I believe that this is a recipe also for our attractiveness. Is being both a university for Luxembourg and a university for the world. We can have it is absolutely not my ambition that the University of Luxembourg is a regional university. We need to be a worldwide renowned university with reputation. Our research and innovation needs to be at the cutting edge. If not, it just doesn't help a company, right? There is no thing like AI out of Luxembourg. There is just AI. There is a thing like Luxembourgish law, yes. There is a thing like Luxembourgish history. There is a thing like investment law. And in those fields, we're either doing it already or we're reflecting on it.
Jens, we've very easily filled an hour. You'll have to come back and talk more about the research of Luxembourg's university, because we haven't focused so much on the research element of it, but I know that that's another pillar, very important pillar. But we've had a very dynamic conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very, very busy leader of the university here and a great voice on the stage as well. When I mean the stage, I mean across many channels. You're very vibrantly active and you're a great leader for the University of Luxembourg. So thank you so much for your time. And we will welcome you back to talk more about research one day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was really absolutely great being here. You have been pushing me into these topics. It is all great, interesting topics. I will love to come back on another topic.
With huge joy, because AI is not going to leave us. It's going to just reshape our lives.
It just gets faster and more interesting.
And I know that you're doing specific learning courses yourself on this, so we definitely need to have your expertise back here one day.
Lifelong learning for myself.
For all of us. Thank you, Jens. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.